Well, hello again, and welcome again to another episode of Down to Earth but Heavenly Minded. And I'm your host, Risch, and you're listening to Internet Radio. And we're going through the book of Daniel, and today we're going to be in chapter 4.
The Book of Daniel, Chapter 4, by Daniel C. Snaddon. The first 4 verses of this chapter were probably written after King Nebuchadnezzar had had the terrible experience recorded toward the end of the chapter. From verses 4 through 27 is the record of the dream and the interpretation thereof. Nebuchadnezzar had been successful in many military campaigns and at this particular time was resting in his palace. He had a dream which disturbed him greatly. He called all the wise men of his kingdom to present themselves before him, told them his dream and asked for the interpretation. The so-called wise men were unable to do so. Verses 4 to 7. Verse 8 Daniel is brought in. Verse 10 The king begins to tell Daniel of his dream. He saw a high tree on the earth. The tree grows till it reached heaven. It was a fair tree giving food and shelter. The animals and birds lived under its shadow. All at once an angel appeared with a message from heaven. Read verses 14 through 16. When Daniel heard the king's dream and received the interpretation from God, he was reluctant to tell it. Finally he said, My Lord, the dream be to them that hate thee, and the interpretation of it to thine enemies. Verse 19. In short, it meant that Nebuchadnezzar would be driven from his throne. He would live like a wild beast, he would eat grass like a cow, for 7 years. At the end of this time he would be humbled and acknowledge that the Most High ruleth in the kingdoms of men. Verses 24 to 25. Verse 28 And all this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. A year later, while walking with friends, he made a fatal mistake. Read verse 30. Note the pronouns, I have built, my power, my majesty. Pride is the rock upon which he perished. Heaven reacted immediately. While the words were still in the king's mouth, there came a voice from heaven. Thy kingdom is departed from thee. Verse 31. That same hour Nebuchadnezzar was driven from his kingdom, he lived with and like a beast, ate grass like a cow, lived in the open without shelter. His hair grew until it looked like eagle's feathers. His nails were like birds' claws. He remained in this condition for 7 years. During this time he lost his reason. At the end of this time it returned to him. He repented of his sin. He was restored to the throne, and putting the postscript and the epilogue of the chapter together, it seems as if this heathen king was converted. This is the last we hear of Nebuchadnezzar. First consider the sin of Nebuchadnezzar. See verse 30. Then relate it to others who committed the same sin. 1. Satan. The overthrow of Lucifer because of pride and rebellion. Describe who Lucifer was. Show his pride. I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of the congregation. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Describe how he was cast down and his ultimate end. 2. Adam and Eve. See Genesis 3 verses 1 to 6. Ye shall be as God. Lust of flesh, lust of eye, pride of life. Brought ruin on the human race. 3. The rich farmer. Soul, thou hast much goods laid up, etc. Luke 12. God stepped in. Tonight thy soul will be required of thee. 4. The proud Pharisee. I thank God I am not as other men. I fast twice a week. I give tithes. Despite these he remained a sinner. Describe the sinner attitude. God be merciful to me a sinner, etc. This man was justified. Apply these truths.
The end.